You watch the sun disappear behind the horizon. The last light fades from the landscape, and suddenly, the world becomes almost completely dark. Today, darkness is barely an inconvenience. You flip a switch, a streetlight turns on, your phone lights up, your room has a lamp. But imagine living thousands of years ago. There is no electricity, no flashlight, no glowing screen, no streetlights in the distance. Once the sun disappeared, you were surrounded by darkness. So what did ancient humans actually do after the sun went down? The answer is more interesting than simply going to sleep. Because for prehistoric humans, nighttime was not just the end of the day. It was another environment entirely, and surviving it required preparation. Before darkness arrived, you needed to make sure you had everything you might need. Food, water, firewood, tools, and most importantly, fire. Fire changed what nighttime meant for humans. A natural flame could provide warmth, light, protection, and a place where people could gather. Archaeological sites show that ancient humans were using controlled fire for extremely long periods of human history. At places such as Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, evidence of controlled fire dates back hundreds of thousands of years. Later prehistoric communities became increasingly skilled at maintaining fires. And once the sun disappeared, that fire became the center of your world. You would sit close to it. The flames would illuminate only a small area around you. Beyond that circle of light was darkness, and you had no idea what might be standing just outside it. This is one reason nighttime could be dangerous. Predators were part of the environment. Lions, hyenas, wolves, and other carnivores could move through the darkness. You could not simply lock a door and go to sleep. There were no doors, no walls surrounding most camps, no security cameras, no emergency services. Your protection was often your group, your fire, and your awareness. That meant some people may have remained more alert while others slept. We cannot know exactly how every prehistoric group organized nighttime watches, but living in groups would have provided an important advantage. If one person heard something moving outside the camp, everyone did not necessarily need to wake up. A single alert person could react first, and the presence of many humans around a fire could itself discourage some predators from approaching. But there was another problem. Darkness did not just hide predators. It hid everything. You could not see where you were walking. You could not easily search for food. You could not travel safely across unfamiliar terrain. And even simple tasks became harder. So most activities had to happen before sunset. During daylight, you would gather food, hunt, collect wood, make tools, repair clothing, process plants, and move across the landscape. Night was different. Your world became smaller. You stayed closer to camp. And this is where something surprisingly important may have happened. You talked. Humans are unusually social animals. And once physical work slowed down, there was finally time to interact with the people around you. Around a fire, you could communicate. You could teach. You could remember. You could plan. You could warn others about dangerous places. You could explain where food had been found. You could teach children how to make tools or recognize plants. And you could pass information from one generation to the next. This may have made nighttime incredibly important for human culture. Imagine sitting beside a fire with several other people. The flames move. Someone begins speaking. Others listen. A child watches the adults. Stories about animals, landscapes, ancestors, enemies, successful hunts, and dangerous places could be remembered and repeated. We cannot recover the exact conversations prehistoric people had, but humans have been gathering socially for an extraordinarily long time, and fire provided something unusual, a warm, safe-looking center in an otherwise dark environment. It extended the useful part of the day. Without fire, sunset would have ended many activities immediately. With fire, humans gained a small artificial day. But eventually, even the fire could not keep you awake forever. You needed sleep. And this creates another important question. Where did you sleep? The answer depended on the environment and the technology available to your group. Some ancient humans may have slept inside caves or rock shelters. Others likely slept in temporary shelters made from wood, plants, animal skins, or other materials. Evidence from archaeological sites shows that prehistoric humans created sleeping areas and used plant materials as bedding. At some sites, researchers have found evidence suggesting that people deliberately prepared comfortable surfaces for sleeping. That tells you something important. Sleep was not an afterthought. It was part of survival. But sleeping in the prehistoric world was very different from sleeping in a modern bedroom. You had to deal with cold, smoke, insects, uneven ground, noise, and possibly animals nearby. Your body also had to adapt to the darkness. Human eyes are remarkably sensitive to low light, but they still need time to adjust. After sitting beside a bright fire, the darkness beyond it could appear almost completely black. So you probably did not casually walk away from the fire whenever you wanted. If you needed to move, you had to know exactly where you were going. And there was another resource you had to protect: the fire itself. A fire could go out during the night. That meant someone might need to maintain it. Adding wood, moving burning material, keeping enough heat alive until morning. In cold environments, this could be especially important. A dead fire was not just inconvenient. It could mean losing warmth during the coldest part of the night. And that brings us to one of the biggest differences between your life and theirs. Today, nighttime is largely controlled by technology. You decide when the day ends. You can keep working at midnight. You can watch a movie at 2 a.m. You can turn on lights at any moment. Ancient humans could not. Their lives were tied much more closely to natural light. That does not mean everyone immediately fell asleep at sunset. In fact, human sleep is more flexible than that. People can sleep in multiple periods. Some prehistoric groups may have experienced periods of waking during the night, especially when environmental conditions, social activity, or group safety required it. You might sleep, wake for a while, talk with someone, check the fire, care for a child, then sleep again. We should be careful here. There was no single prehistoric bedtime routine. Ancient humans lived across different continents, climates, and thousands of generations. A hunter living in Ice Age Europe did not necessarily have the same nighttime routine as a human living in tropical Africa. A temporary hunting camp was different from a long-term settlement, and a small family group was different from a larger community. But the basic challenge remained. When the sun went down, your world became darker, colder, quieter, and harder to navigate. And you had to adapt. So imagine the final moments before sleep. The fire is still burning. The people around you are becoming quieter. The children are close to their families. The darkness stretches beyond the small circle of light. You hear insects. You hear wind. Maybe an animal moving somewhere beyond the camp. You cannot check a phone. You cannot turn on a light. You cannot close a reinforced door. You simply listen. And eventually, you close your eyes. For thousands of generations, humans did exactly this. They lived with the darkness instead of trying to eliminate it. And perhaps that is the strangest part. That was not an empty period between 2 days. It was a time for warmth, social connection, storytelling, protection, and sleep. The fire did more than keep you warm. It helped transform the night from a dangerous unknown into a place where humans could gather. And every morning, when the sun returned, the larger world opened again. The darkness disappeared. The camp became visible. And another day of survival began. Today, you can experience complete darkness simply by turning off the lights. But for ancient humans, darkness was not something you could switch off. It surrounded you every single night. And somehow, your ancestors learned how to live inside it. If you enjoyed discovering what everyday life was really like for ancient humans, subscribe to Primal Questions. Because sometimes the simplest question, what did humans do after the sun went down, reveals just how different your world is from theirs.